Hello, and how are you? My name is Mohindo Mubarak, and I welcome you to this lecture. In this lecture, we're going to look at SQL injection under software security. We will focus more on practical examples so that by the time you finish this lecture, you should have got the concept and what is really meant by SQL injection. So I hope you're ready to do this with me. If you are, then let's get started. So here is what you're going to look at today. We'll look at SQL injection, what is meant by SQL, what is SQL injection. We'll look at programming languages that are vulnerable to SQL injection. We'll look at the examples of SQL injection and how to reduce the risks of SQL injection. And we'll also have some tips of how we can reduce or how we can handle the SQL injection. That's what we're going to look at today. So we're going to begin by defining SQL. So SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and it lets us to access and manipulate the database. At this point, I'll assume, or I'll take it as you already know what is meant by database. A database is a should I call it a place? Is a place where we save all the data that the application depends on. So we use SQL as a language that communicates with the what? With the database. So SQL can retrieve data from the database, and SQL can insert records into the database. SQL can update records in the database. SQL can delete records. It can create new databases. SQL can create new tables in a database. SQL can create stored procedures, and it can also create views in the database. So all these are things that, or are features, or are possibilities that an SQL can do to a database. We should say that an SQL can do almost everything to any data to the database that is connected to. In simple terms, SQL is a language that we use to talk with the database. So I'll assume that you've understood what is meant. I hope not just to assume. I hope that you've understood what is meant by SQL. Now we'll proceed to SQL injection. SQL injection is an attack that consists of an insertion. So that insertion is what we call the injection. Okay, so I'll repeat it. I say SQL injection is an attack that consists of a what? An insertion, or something that is added to our SQL. So that insertion is what we call the injection of SQL query via the input of data and via the input data from the client to our application. So when you collect data from the client to our application, most of the time we usually use this data to get the information from the database, or to manipulate the database. So if the user, or if a client or someone who is going to use our application successfully do what we do not intend to do from the data that on our database, from the data that he puts in our application. So that is what is meant by SQL injection. Someone finds a trick to manipulate our database from the information that we ask them to enter. That's what we call an SQL injection. So it means by that a successful SQL injection exploit can read the sensitive data from our database, or it can as well modify and perform dangerous queries such as inserting, updating, and deleting information in the database. It can go also ahead and execute administration operations such as shutting down our database. So if an SQL injection is successful, it can really be dangerous to our database. So SQL injection is a code or a technique that that might destroy our database, and SQL injection is one of the most common web hacking techniques. So if you hear that a certain web has been hacked, most of the time it is always through SQL injection. So SQL injection is a placement of malicious code. So someone who does not have good intention in the application, they can place a malicious code from the information that we ask them to enter, and that code, if it modifies our SQL, and perform anything on a database that we don't intend to is what we call SQL injection. So SQL injection usually occurs when we ask the user to do what? To enter the information or to input the information application. Like when you ask the user to enter the username, when you ask them to enter the password, that's most of time when people or users manipulate our database or our application through the what? Through the SQL injection. So here list is a list of programming languages that are prone or that are vulnerable to what? To SQL injection. So there is a saying that, there is a conclusion that says any programming language used to interface or used to communicate to the database can be affected by SQL injection. And higher level programming languages that are affected by SQL injections so far, they're as follows: Perl, programming language is affected by SQL injection. Python is also vulnerable to SQL injection. Ruby on Rails, Java, ASP, ASP.NET, JSP, PHP, C Sharp, and Visual Basic.NET. So all these high-level programming languages can be affected or are already prone or already vulnerable to what? To SQL injection. And here are other lower programming languages that are vulnerable to SQL injection. There is C programming language, C++, and C programming language, C++. They are also vulnerable to SQL injection, though they are lower level programming languages. So we should say like almost every programming language is vulnerable to SQL injection as long as it can interface our application with the what? With the database. And if you want to read more of this, just go and read this book, which is book by Michelle Howard. It was produced 2010 and it is titled as 24 Deadly Sins of Software Security. From page 6 to the rest, you will know, or you'll have you can know more of what we've just summarized, and the languages and how they are vulnerable to SQL injection. All the examples, you can find them in this book. So go and find out from that, starting from that page and ahead. So I'll proceed, and we're going to look at now the examples of SQL injection. So SQL injection can be made through SQL injection based on, SQL injection can be made based on 1 equals to 1. That is always true. And another way is SQL injection based on nothing is always equal to nothing, or empty string is always equal to empty string. So that is always true. And SQL injection can also be based on batched SQL statements. For example, someone adds an SQL statement into our SQL that can result also to SQL injection. And SQL injection based on batch comment of, based on what? On a block comment. Someone can decide to comment our SQL and then perform malicious things on what? On our application or to our database. That is also another way or another example of SQL injection. So we're going to look at them one by one. For example, this one, there is SQL injection based on 1 equals 1 is always true. So this is a simple SQL statement. For example, you can see here, select all from users where user ID equal to 200, and then there's an injection here, or 1 is equal to 1. So this or 1 equal to 1 will make sorry, let me show you. This 1 equal to 1. Okay, sorry. First undo here. I say this beginning from here, it cannot be our intention, or this 1 equal to 1 is always true. So if someone manages to add 1 equal to 1, of course this will always make it this whole things to be true. So he'll be able to access all the users in the table of users. So, and it will make this one to be pointless. Okay, it will make this one to be pointless because the or condition will make it always be true. So if someone can manage to insert this O1 equal to 1 to our SQL, it means that they have performed an SQL injection. First remove this pen. Okay. Okay, so we're going to look at this example. Okay, we're going to look at the practical way of what is meant by 1 equal to 1 is always true, and we'll also proceed from there after we've looked at the example. So let us see how this can really happen in the real world applications. We're going to make a simple application and try to trick it and see if we can perform an injection to it. So here's that. I'm going to come here to htdocs. I'm going to use PHP. I'll assume that you already know basics of PHP, and if you are not, I'll add the link in the description of this video so you can get the basics and what is meant by PHP, and you see how you can get started with PHP, just in case you're interested. So here in htdocs is a place where we save our our websites. Okay, so I'm going to create a new website here, and then we use it to perform or to practice what is meant by SQL injection. Okay, so I'm going to come here in this htdocs. Let me repeat for the last time. I'll add the link in the description that can give you the basics of PHP, so you can get started and practice what I'm explaining here. Okay, just the basics, not even advanced. Okay, but even if you don't know PHP, still you'll get the concept. You'll get the concept of what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and make an application. Okay, so I'm going to create an application. So I'm going to create a folder here in htdocs. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it up to. So this is the folder, right here, you can see it. So in this folder, I'm going to open it in the text editor. Okay, let's go ahead and open this folder in text editor. So I'm going to drag and drop it into Visual Studio Code. Okay, so it is loading. So there is a Visual Studio Code, and you can see our application is there. Okay, up to. So in this up to, I'm going to put a default file that will be opened, which is index.php. So I'll right click here and create a new file. I'm going to name it as index.php. Okay, so there it is. So here I'm going to put just basic HTML. That is nothing but basic HTML, and call this one home. Okay, so let's go ahead and put here home. Just I can say up to home. Okay, so that's a simple application. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to start my PHP server. So you have to go to XAMPP if you're using a Mac. If you're using a Windows computer, so you'll have to install XAMPP, and after installing XAMPP, you have to do what? You have to start the XAMPP. Okay, so for me, I already have MAMP, which is used for what? For Mac computers. Okay, so here. This is my MAMP, and I've already started the server itself. So after starting the server, we're going to do what? To run the application. So let's go ahead and run our application. Okay, so for the Windows computer, you open XAMPP. After it's opening XAMPP, you start both XAMPP and what? And Apache. If you want to know more, the link in the description of this video that will show you how to do all that. Okay, so after doing that, you're just going to come here and say localhost stroke what? Stroke up to. Okay, so there is our app. So this can prove to us that our application is working. You can see up to home. Okay, so we're going to change here to login, and then we put the form that's going to collect data from user, because we say that SQL injection always happen when you're collecting data from user. So let us have a place where we can have data from what? From user. So this is our application. I'll try to put this one close to this, like this. Okay. So I'm going to call this one login. Okay, after doing that, I'm going to create here just a file, new .s. That's a bootstrap file .css. Just a CSS file with bootstrap. Okay. So I'm going to add this bootstrap here. It's a CSS file. That's what you should know. Nothing is behind it. bs.css. Okay. So after doing that, mean that we have some bootstrap. Okay, bootstrap is a collection of classes of CSS that can help us to design HTML or in a simple way. Okay, so I'm going to create here a div. This is nothing but HTML, no logic is here. Class, and I'm going to give it a row. I'm going to create here another div and give it a class of call for. I'm going to explain everything here, and I'm going to create here another class. Okay, so I'm going to put my form here. This is nothing but bootstrap. Don't worry about anything. This is just, this is nothing but HTML. Okay, so don't feel like you're already confused. It's just HTML. Okay, so now let's start our logic. So I'm going to collect here the data that we may need from the user. So the first thing we're going to collect from the user is the create a form like that, and we're going to give it action. So let us submit this form to login.php. So we're going to create a file called login.php, and this will be, it is where we'll be submitting this form, and we can change the method to do what, to post. Okay, so let's go ahead and put here the first input. So in bootstrap, to create an input, you can just simply do like this class call, this class can give it a what, form control, a class called form control. There's no logic here, this is just for appearance. Okay, form control, and then here we're going to have the label, and this label is going to call login. We're going to call it login, username, and then let's now have the real input, which is going to be here input, like this, input, and let us call it text. It's having type of text, and then we give it a name of username. Okay, so let's create another, we give it a class of form control, class form control. Okay, this one, it is form group. This is just classes for bootstrap. These are just for appearance, nothing big. Okay, so this is for username. Let's have here another one for password. Okay, so we'll give it a password, and then the most important thing here is give it a name of password. Okay, so after having that, let us have now our submission button. So it's going to be submit. Okay, let's put input, and the type is going to be submit, and the value is going to be maybe login, and we give it a what, a class of btn maybe success. Okay, whatever, btn primary. Okay, this is just HTML. No business here. It's just HTML. So don't be, if you're new to this thing, don't feel confused. We have not write any logic here. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh our page. This is what we've got. It means that bootstraps did not come properly. Link is bs.css. Did we save bootstrap really? This bootstrap, I hope so. I don't know why it's not functioning as expected, and you're having a relevant link which is bs.css, oh, bt, not bs. Okay, this one is just for css. Okay, so let's go ahead and save and refresh. That's what I was expecting. So have this. Let's put here maybe some empty. I love designing, so D5. Okay, so that can waste our time. Okay, so that's enough. Okay, that's enough. Okay, so now here we can have an input and then here our password. Now with that, let's go ahead and collect these things from the other side. Okay, we're submitting to a file called login.php, but you can see this login file is not created yet, so let's go ahead and create it. Okay, so I'll come here to the file and create it, new file. I'm going to name it login.php, and here is just going to be simple PHP. So I have to start PHP. So we're going to do the logic of getting the data and tell the user if they are logged in or not. Okay, so we're going to have PHP. Okay, so here we're going to have username. Of course, username is going to be the username from the other side, which is going to have, which is going to be, which you can collect it from the super global variable of post, and then we pass here username. So what does it mean? It means that the username that will be submitted from this form that we create here in the login, this name, this one, is the one that will collect here in this PHP file. Okay, here. So let's go ahead and do that password and collect password. Okay, and then have your password. So let us prove that these things have been collected successfully. So to prove it, you can just simply say echo and say your user name is, and then we concatenate there the username dot $, username, and then we say and your password is, and then it's going to concatenate there password. Okay, so you see, this is the index file, this is the login file. So it means that if we can successfully collect the thing that we submitted from this file to this file, that means that we have moved we have got the data that the user has done what, has submitted to our application. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'll refresh here because it is resubmitting, and then you can see your username is, okay, you did not submit anything. Okay, let's say that my username is test and my password is test1. Okay, test1. So if you try to log in, you can see, let me try to put here also Bootstrap so you can see things clearly. You can put your HTML5, and then I'm going to put here the link of bt.css. I'm just doing this so that you can see things clearly, and you're having here PHP, so the logic starts from here, right? So let me go ahead and echo this and surround it with what, with the h1 tag. Okay, and I concatenate here the closing tag. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh so you can see things clearly. So you can see your username is test and your password is test1. So you see this is the login file, and we submitted the other things from what, from the index file. So it means that we have successfully got the data from the database, from the user to our project. Now let's go ahead and create the database, and we see how we can practice or test the SQL injection. So to do that, you're going to come here and type localhost, and then put stroke php my admin, and in there is where we're going to have our databases. Okay, so I'll come here to new database. I'm going to create a new database, and then we're going to call it up to. Okay, so we have, up to is already there. up to, yeah. Okay, let me call this an up3. Okay, it's already there. So that's our database, right? So let us try to add a table in our database, right? So I'm going to call it a table of users, and it's going to have 4 columns. Okay, Okay, so let's go ahead and give these columns properties. Maybe you'll have an ID, and it's going to be maybe auto incrementing it, and it's going to be our primary key. And then we're going to have here the username, and then it's going to be maybe a text, and then we're going to have password. Okay, maybe the name is going to be also text, and maybe also password. Okay, that's going to be maybe text. Okay, so I can have here maybe, should you give it a name? I want something that can differentiate. Maybe let's just call it user type. Okay, user type, user underscore type. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. That's just a simple table, right? A simple table. So that's our simple table. Now let's go ahead and add some data in this table, right? So to add data in this table, you can just simply click on it, this table of users, and then click on insert to insert there some data. So we're going to use our application to be feeding data from this table. So the username, maybe you can call the first one Jen, and then the user type, maybe this Jen is what is a teacher. Okay, let's say she's a teacher, and then the password is 4321, and then another one is called Joan, and this Joan is student, and the password is 4321 4321. Okay, so let's add some, maybe some more two rows so I can have enough data to test with. Okay, so I've successfully inserted this data. So it means that you have two users. Okay, so you have two users. So you have Jane and Joan, right? One is a teacher, the other one is a student. We can add as many as we want, but for now, leave it there. Okay. So after doing that, let's go ahead and do what? And connect our app with this database and see if we can get this data from this app, and then from the database, and display it and use it in our application. So to do that, we'll just simply come to our code. The first thing that we do, we create the connection. Okay, so to create the connection, just simply write $, or anything equals MySQLi, and then you pass the following equals to new MySQLi. Then you pass the following. The first one is where the database is located, which is local host, and then the second one is the username for the database, root, and then the third parameter is the password. My password is root, but most of time for Windows, it default password of them is just nothing. You just leave it as empty string like this. Okay, but for now I'll give it as root for mine. Okay, and then the database that you're connecting to is app3. If you still remember, app3, that's the database that you're connected to. So this is going to be our connection. Okay, now let us try to write an SQL that is going to fetch. Let me comment this one so it cannot display anything. Let's try to write an SQL that's going to fetch the data from our database and then display it. Okay, all the data. So to do that, we can just write our SQL as select everything from users. Okay, so let's run the SQL. So we'll get what we call a resource, which is equal to the connection that we've created, and then you point at query, what you call query. Okay, and then we pass the SQL. Okay, so after doing that, we can now see, after doing that, then we can get the data, right? We can get the data by just simply looping through this. Let me try to zoom in so you can see clearly. I hope they can see. Let us try to get the data. So here we'll just simply write a for each, a while loop, just like this, while, and then you say maybe user equals the response or the resource, and then we add this function called fetch underscore assoc, this one, and then that one will be fetching one by one, each row by row from the database. So after doing that, let us now try to display one by one here. So to display, you can just simply say echo, and then pass here like, okay, h1, and then you can say maybe name, you can say username. Let's have the username of a person there, So it's going to be, I have to stop this, dot dot, and then we pass username, 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 like this. Okay, then let's pass another one. It's going to be password. So put here comma and then put password. Okay, so the password is going to be like that, dot dot, and then you, and then we pass there password. Do you need to display the password? Let's display user type, user underscore type. So this is the data that we're going to get from database and display it in an application. Remember to put a semicolon there. Okay, I hope we're together, right? I'm getting the data from the database and display it in an application. Just how you can simply display data from the database to application. Let's go ahead and refresh. I hope everything's going to be okay. Perfect. You see? You see password or user type. Yeah, user type. User underscore type. That's beautiful, right? So if we refresh, everything is perfect, right? Perfect. Everything is beautiful. We can get the data. So if we add here some more users, let us try to add some more users. Just simply come to insert and then maybe add some user, and maybe like we have Jen and John, and let's add Joanne, and her user type maybe is also student, and also her password is 4321. And let us have Jane, Joan, and John, and her user type maybe is also teacher, and then a password, his password 4321. Okay, so let's run this. Let's go refresh. So we have 4, right? Now if we come to our application and refresh, you can see we have 4 users. Okay, we have 4 users. Now if I want to limit, if I want to limit these results only with my conditions, assume that I want only teachers. Okay, I want only teachers. What will I do? I just simply come and say add here a where condition, a where clause, by saying here, you see where is our SQL? SQL is here. So if I want only teachers, I can say where where user type, user underscore type equals teacher. So what will happen? It will return for me only people who have the user type of what? Of teachers. We did a mistake here. Some student who doesn't have correct password. Okay, we'll just get something which is only teachers, right? So if I refresh, you can see our condition is working. We're getting only teachers. If I want one person, because most of the time only one user has the same name. Let me say I want John. Okay, John. So if I want John, a person with the username John only, a record with the username John only. So I'll just come and say here where user underscore username equals John. Okay, so if I come and refresh here, there is no one with the word with the user name of John. Okay, just see Jen. So if I think I will not put John. So if I refresh here, you can see we have only one person called Jen. So you can get all the records of Jen because we fix this condition to what? To Jen. So that's how we always log into our applications. Okay, so that's how they always log into our application. Now what we're going to do right now, we're going to see how we can link. Okay, how I can get so I'm going to just put here echo here, maybe echo success. Okay, echo. Okay, now let us see how we can link now our SQL with the data that we got from what? From the from outside, right? From the users. So I'm going to copy this and now put where username, instead of hard coding it here, I'm going to replace it with the data that we got from outside. So this SQL is going to be getting the whatever we submit from the other side, and it fixes it there. So let me try to die. Okay, die means to stop the application. I try to die with not me dying. I stop the application with what? With the SQL, and we see what the SQL looks like at the moment. So you can see our SQL is where select all from user where username equals to test. So it means that if we come back here and put maybe the username as Joan, so if submit, so it means that it will be submitting and limiting to what? To Joan. Okay, Joan. So let's go and remove this die. Okay, Joan. So if I come and refresh, you can see we have two results of Joan because there are two people with Joan. So let us come and limit this one, and instead of having Joan, let's put here John, like that in our database, and maybe try to collect this one, John. Okay, so I hope you're getting it. So you can see here we're getting only a single result whose username is what? Is Joan. Okay, Joan. So most of the time, when we are logging into application, they always ask us to provide the what? The passwords. So let us limit this one. We add there also what? A password. So if someone submits a wrong password, we should be able to tell. Okay. So to do that, I'm going to first comment this. I'm just going, since we're expecting only a single result, so let us go ahead and okay. So let me wait. I'm going to show you something. Okay. Do like this: echo a pre-tag and printer, like this. Okay, and I'm going to explain something here. Okay, so this resource, when it comes back with the number of rows that has been that were found on database. So if I come and dump it here, this is what we call dumping. Okay, so if I dump it here, I see we can see the number of rows here, num rows. Okay, so here if you put here num rows, we can tell like how many things were found. Okay, how many records are found. So if I refresh here, you can see. Sorry, I did not put echo. Have to put something like this. It's based on integer. So you can see here, you're getting. I did not save. Okay. So if I come and refresh, oh sorry, it's not an array. Sorry, it's not an array. You have to do like this. Sorry, like this. Okay. It's not an array. Yeah, I think yeah, it's an object. So you can see we're having only a single result. A single result. If we remove this condition, like this, if we remove this where and refresh, you can see the number of results. And what I want to show you that you see we have 4 results because there's no condition. What I want to tell you that before you start looping, there's ability for you to know if there is something that returned or not. So that is going to help us to be telling if there's something or not. So I'm going to put a condition before we loop. I'm going to put a condition and say if if is less than what is less than 1, then you can know. I can put here now echo not okay, let me say wrong user name or password, and stop the application from here. So here this is where they redirect in case you enter wrong username and password. Okay, so here if it is success, let me put here, maybe let me sound it the h1 tag just for good visual representation. Okay, okay, so if it passes here, so this application will stop from here. If it passes here, I'm going to say success okay, and maybe found, and then I can put the number of records that were found. Okay, I can put here the number of records that were found, and put here double quotes like this and like that, and then put here the number of rows that were found. Okay, found those records. Okay, so I hope you're getting it. So in case we find nothing, in case find something less than 0, the application will not go beyond here. and in case we found something more than 0, we will show the record that we have found, and then we display that. So let's go ahead and refresh. So refresh, success, found one record. Okay, and then that's the record itself. Okay, so you can put here successful login or success whatever, but it means that the success, though we can go ahead and log in the user if it is that. So when you log in the user, now you have to provide also the password. Okay, you have to provide also the what, the password. So I have to add here another condition. So add and password equals the password that was provided. Okay, yeah, this password. Okay, so I'll put that password there, and let me die with this SQL and you see how it looks like at this moment. So I'll die there, and then you can see we're having select all from users where username is got Joan and password is got test1. Okay, so we know there is no record that is matching with these conditions, I mean with these credentials. Yes, we have a username called Joan, but there's no one who has password test1. Okay, so we're expecting a 0 record, right? So let's go ahead and look at that. So that's how we can tell like something was successfully done or not. Refresh. So wrong username or password, right? Wrong username or password. Okay, so that's beautiful. So if we enter another password like this, still wrong username or password. Now let us try to enter a correct password, 4321, and then click on login. Perfect, success, and one user is found, of course one record, and then you can go ahead and log in that user. So that's how we do what, that's how things always work, and that's how things should work. If someone enters wrong username or wrong password, one of the two is wrong or both are wrong, we shouldn't be able to do what, to proceed the application, and we tell them just the username and password that they were wrong. Now, what is SQL injection? SQL injection, ability for the users or the clients to manipulate our database through embedding their own SQLs. So now you see here we cannot proceed, we cannot see success only when the username and password is correct. As long as we put anything wrong on password, you see I add here another one on password, we're expecting like wrong username or password. Now what if there is a way that we can modify the other SQL and through the inputs and be able to get anything that we want? So that's what we'll call SQL injection. So to do that, I'm going to perform here some SQL injection. So I'll just simply add here, something like, just enter even wrong password. You see, I enter wrong password. Okay, let us do some SQL injection. I entered there wrong password. Okay, so what, after entering wrong password, I know the SQL will have a quote, so I'll have to stop it from there, and I put O and I add here 1 equals to 1 like this, and I try to log in. Okay, so you see there's no one who has this password. I repeat, there's no one who has this password, but if you try to log in, can you see there is a problem? There's a problem. You see, we have hacked the what? The software. We have hacked the software. Why? Because we provided wrong password, we provided the wrong username, but you see, I've got all the records. So it's like you're exposing everything that was in the database in that table through the what? Through the SQL injection. That's what I mean, through the SQL injection. So you see, I just simply add this, O1 equal to 1, and I do this. So let us see, and I do this. So I know this condition. So even if I add a wrong password, but I know this condition will provide something that is always wrong, and I try to log in. So you see, I'm getting 4 records with wrong password, with wrong what. So that's what we call SQL injection. Now let me try to let us see what is really there. Let us see what our SQL really became when you try to run this. So let me run here the SQL. Let me echo the SQL here, and we see what the hell SQL became. Okay, so I'll just simply say echo, and then come and put here our, okay, maybe h1 also, h1, Okay, so I'll stop it. Put here. Let me go ahead SQL. Let me give it just a class, and I call it text primary. Okay, so let's go and see. Let us see how SQL how it looks like. So if I come and refresh him, can you see the SQL? Select all from users where username equals Joan and password equals whatever user entered there is what is going to be reflected in the what in the SQL. So you see what the user did. He literally stopped the header and then he added O 1 equal to 1. So this one will always be true. And once this is true, then mean that the whole SQL is true. So I hope you've got the concept. So someone will manipulate our database from what? From what it's meant to do, and they'll perform whatever they want, so, which is so dangerous. So there's ability for this user maybe to stop the SQL from there, okay, and then go ahead and run something which is so dangerous like drop database. Okay, you see, so drop database, and then you put maybe the database name if you know it up to. So what will happen? All the database will be dropped. That is so dangerous, really dangerous. So you should be careful and get rid of and try to avoid SQL injection. And that's why we are here, to know the flaws that we do when you're creating applications. So for you know that you've created a great application, yet it is prone to the injection. So I hope you've understood what is meant by injection. Really dangerous. You see, it is really dangerous. So that's how it can happen in real world. So let's proceed and see now how we can reduce the risk of SQL injection. I'll share with you this source code so you can also try practice on your own at every time. So proceed, so that you have done that of 1 equal to 1 is always equal to 1 example. Okay, so SQL of nothing is always equal to nothing. That is also possible. For example, someone can do this. He just stop your password and then he say nothing equal to nothing, like that, and then you will be able to successfully manipulate your database without passing permission. Okay, so another SQL based on batched statement. For example, the one that I showed you, like someone can stop the SQL. You see, he stops the SQL here. Select all from users, and he stops your SQL. Then he writes his or their own SQL. So what will happen? This will drop. So this is what called batch SQL. So there are so many SQL. That's what we call them batch. So I'll be able to drop the databases, be able to do anything that they want through your inputs that you give them. So that is also SQL injection based on what? On batch inputs. Okay, so SQL based on batch comments. So someone can comment your own SQL and then he adds his own. So for example, he puts here O is equal to this and this, and then he comment everything that was remaining. So you'll be able also to do what? To get everything that he wants. This is how we write a comment in SQL. Okay, like this. So he comments everything that is remaining, and then they'll be able to do what? To get what they want. So it is really dangerous, the SQL what? Injection. So how can you get rid of this SQL injection? The high use of parameters. There's also detecting the malicious characters, escaping pattern check, database permissions, and let us now look at them. So use of prepared statements. So prepared statements, they enable us to know or to design the way the SQL that we're going to accept in an application. So even if the user try to add their own way, we shouldn't allow them. So that's what we call prepared statements. Some programming languages have them, others they don't. Okay, so this is how we write a prepared statement. For example, instead of inserting and then put the other values, we just simply say insert into the table name, and then we put the question mark instead of what? Of the value. Then we get the value that the user submitted and bind them into the question mark. So if you're expecting 4 inputs from the user, so there will be 4 inputs exactly, and so what we do, what we add there. So whatever is beyond that will not do what, will not accept it. So that's what we call prepared statements. You can search about them, and I'll give a notes about them, and the link will be in the description. Okay, so that's what's meant by prepared prepared statement. It will only accept what it is, what it was prepared for. So that can also help us to get rid of SQL injection. We have, so that's another example of what, of prepared statement. You can see this one. We are inserting to my guest what, this is how it is written. So assume that you're going to insert into the database. So we say insert into the database name, and then here are the values that you're going to insert: first name, last name, and email. So instead of putting here the values directly, they use our SQL will be prone to the injection. But what we do, we put question marks, and then later we bind it with a what? We say bind, and then we pass there the value that we do what, that we expect from the user. So even if the user stops and do the trick of inserting their own SQLs inside here, the prepared statement will not allow it. And then we do what? We execute it. Then by doing that, you will be free from SQL injection. So another way is detection of malicious uh, malicious uh, characters or keywords. So you may decide not to allow things like union, like or statements, like the quotes, a single quote. You may decide not to allow such inputs from what, from users. So if you check them and you find them, then you refuse to do what, to run those SQLs. So another way is through escaping, and that is another better way of how you can get rid of what, of SQL injection. Like you escape the inputs by using the function of what, of by using the function of a programming language that can help you to escape the inputs. So in PHP we already have one. It's called MySQL real string escape, and I'm going to demonstrate it. Okay, MySQLi real escape string. That can help you also to do what, to get rid of SQL injection. Let us look at it. Okay, it's called my SQLi real escape string, this one. Okay, it takes two parameters. The first parameter is the connection. We already have the connection con, and the second parameter is the keyword that you want to escape. Okay, so let me assume that before we put our username into the before we put the username into the SQL, we're going to first escape it. So that one will help us from running the malicious MySQL lie. Okay, so let me first die here. Okay, let me first die with this, and you see how it looks like. Die. So I'm trying to escape the strings. So I'll come here and refresh. Can you see? It remains as Joan. Now you know the thing was happening in the password, so I'm going to also work on the password. So everything that you get from the user, you have to escape it. Okay, so let me escape also the password and see what it looks like. So refresh. So can you see the password? Can you see the password? Oh, and then everything that is having a quote, it is being escaped. Can you see? There's a forward slash behind everything that has a quote. So by doing that, you'll be free from what? From SQL injection. So once something is escaped, it means that it will be considered as not as a part of what, of the SQL. So it will be considered as just a plain text in the query. So let's go ahead and see how it looks like. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this one. So you've seen how we escaped, or how we escaped the username and password. So let me first comment everything, and we see how things look like. So of course, here is when we're having the SQL injection affecting our project. Can you see? This is the SQL, right? Yes. And you see, it is giving us the results. Yes, the information was wrong. So now let us implement the what? The escape string. So what I'll do, I'll remove the comments like this. So I'm escaping before I run. Okay, so let us run the application, refresh. Perfect. Can you see? Wrong username and password, and that's how it should be. You see? Now SQL is behaving, and it is rid of what? Of SQL injection. So whatever you may try right now, so far, this injection will be what? Will be rid of. I mean, escape string will be rid of what? Of your injection. So for now, okay. So even if you try to go around it, so far this function can do what? Can help us to escape the strings. I mean, to escape those injections. Okay. So that's how we escape them. Okay, so I hope you've understood it. So you can use the escaping injections, like in different programming languages they have them. For PHP you have this one, and it can help you to get rid of what? Of of SQL injection. You can use string escape to get rid of what? Of SQL injection, as how I've shown you. So you have the pattern check. You can also check the pattern if it is right for what? For you to run. For example, if you're expecting integers, then use integers. If you're expecting alphabets only, then first check if they are all alphabets before you do what? You run them. Otherwise, if you do things in a lazy way like the way we did in them before, then your database will always be prone. Will always be prone to what? To the SQL injection. So you can also reduce on the database permissions. For example, you can say certain user in a set who will be getting the user data from what? From the public. You cannot drop anything. You cannot create anything. Maybe it should be for selecting, or maybe for inserting. So that can also help you to do what? To get rid of and reduce on the risks of what? Of SQL injection. Okay, so that's how we deny user accesses in what? In different programming languages. Okay. So summary or tips. Here the some are some of tips that can help you when you're creating real world projects to get rid or to reduce the risk of SQL injection. You should understand the database to use. Does it support stored procedures? So what is the comment operator? Does it allow the attacker to call the extended functionality or not? So you have to first make a research about the database before you use it. You have to understand common SQL injection attack methods. Again, that database that you're going to use. So you have to read and make enough researches about injections about the database that you're going to use. So do check the input for validity and trustworthiness. So before you allow the input to proceed, first check it. Okay, like before you start using, let me show you. Before you start using, for example, this username that we just got from the public, first check it if it is okay from the server side, like here. Before you do what, you use it. Do check the validity at the server, not at the client. I discussed that, like in case you want to accept only integers. For example, you know our password is only integers. There's a way I can do it from the client. This is the client, the website is the client. So here we can just simply say the type of input is going to be only numbers. Okay, number like this. Okay, so here is checking it from the client. So here in the client, if you refresh and try to enter anything that is not a number, it will not allow. So I'm typing anything that is not a number, it will not allow. But if you only enter a number, it will do what? It will allow. But that shouldn't make us sure that we have really validated everything here. Okay, that shouldn't make us sure that we've validated anything. So if I say gen, why? Because we are doing that from what? From the browser or from the client here in HTML. Okay, you see, we're doing it in HTML. So there's a way how a user can trick us. For example, you right click here and go to inspect, and then for you may think that you're free from it because you wrote in HTML that they should accept only numbers. So someone can come here and just come and change this one. Maybe he wrapped this type. You see? So by doing like that, someone will be able to enter anything. Can you see? I'm now able of entering anything. Can you see that? Which is really bad. Okay? I'm now able of entering anything. So don't validate from HTML or from the front side. Validate from the back side, from the server, from the back end. Okay? That's what we meant. So do use parameterized queries, also known as prepared statements. We've already said that. Do store the database connection information in to store the database connection information in a location outside of the application. Okay, so you should encrypt the sensitive data like passwords. So instead of keeping the database, the plain passwords, you have to encrypt the passwords. Okay, do the input used built-in by do not trust the input used by the build SQL statement. Okay, so don't just get the input straight to the SQL statement. Don't do that. Okay, you have to do the escaping. You have to check if they are not having dangerous words like union and all that. Okay, do not use string connection to build a you should not use string concatenation to do what? To build the SQL like the way we're using. You should be using what? The prepared statements. Okay, do not execute untrusted parameters with the stored procedures. Also, don't check the input validity only from the client. Check from the client and also from what? From the server. So with that much said, I'll thank you for listening and following up to this point, and we'll have to meet in the next lecture. I'm going to share this video and the important links that you may need, and also the important resources, and also a place where you can get the basics of starting learning programming such as PHP, so you can also run these examples that we've done, that we've practiced. I'll also share this simple source code that we used for practicing. So up to this point, I'll stop from here, and thank you for watching and following. We meet in the next lecture. Thank you.